Hey everybody, this is Mandy from Chapel Forge. Today we're having sauerkraut day. So we recruited my parents. They're gonna come over and help us. We'll have 4 adults working on this, which will be great. We have 35 heads of cabbage. We have 2 barrels here and a tub over here. My dad picked it up for us yesterday. So here we get huge heads of cabbage for like $1.25 each, which I think is a great price. So I'm expecting that we're gonna get about a gallon from 5 pounds. Typically a 5-pound cabbage yields a gallon. At least that's the results we had last time. That's what Google says. That's what I'm expecting is going to happen. So making sauerkraut is super simple. You really just need like some big vessels for kind of massaging the sauerkraut or massaging the cabbage. And then you just need some good quality salt. So something that doesn't have iodine in it. You could use pink salt or Redmond's real salt or kosher salt, whatever it is that you like. Anything like that would work. If you have a tamper, that would be helpful. I'll show you what that looks like here shortly. Basically just something to pound the cabbage with. And then whatever vessel you're going to ferment in. This is actually one of the only things I've successfully fermented without mold, which I don't know why. But I'll show you our tips and tricks for making sure that it doesn't mold. This is a really great way to get some good probiotics on your shelf. If you've been following our health journey at all, you know we've been really trying to work on gut health and kind of upping the probiotics. So we do try to get at least a forkful of sauerkraut in us each day. It doesn't always happen, but we try our best. We're down to less than a half a gallon from what we made last year. You can also work carrots into this. You can use green or purple cabbage or whichever. They also have like mixes at the store. Like you could just buy, frankly, last year I bought like some coleslaw mix on Flash Food, which I have a video about Flash Food. If you're local to Lancaster County, you can check that out. I'll link it below. And I got some super cheap coleslaw mix, and I just made some like in the middle of winter or whatever, just to get us through. So that's an option too if you don't want to shred it. We are also trying something new this year. Where did my meat slicer go? We're going to... I haven't dug the meat slicer out yet. In the summer/fall, the corner of my kitchen is full of canners and roasters and meat slicers and crock pots and instant pots and whatever. So don't mind that sort of organized disaster over there. So anyway, we're going to try using the meat slicer to slice our cabbage. Typically we just use a knife and go old school, use the mandolin maybe, but this year we're going to try the meat slicer. Our local butcher posted a video that they were doing it this way, and we were like, this seems genius. So we're going to try that, so stay tuned. We'll show you how this. All right, so my helpers have arrived. Everyone's got their aprons on and looking the part. So Dad and Mom are peeling carrots, cutting carrots into like, you know, handheld sizes, and then Mom's using the mandolin. We're shooting for like longer strips like this so that it looks nice in our kraut. Jameson is over here with his little kid knife. James boy, say hi.
Hi.
You're so cute. Okay, so we're getting our carrots prepped, and then we'll move on to getting cabbage. All right, so Dad's gonna tell you about how to prep your cabbage. Like I said, we're gonna use the meat slicer or try it, so we'll let you know how that goes. But okay, Dad, so how do we prep the cabbage?
You wanna get down and get to the nicer leaves. This one's a little rough, but you probably could use that for the tops. But usually when you get down in deep, then there's already some moisture inside here. So, and once you get down to clean cabbage leaves, there's a little bit of mess there, but I think that's...
And definitely anything soft.
Especially anything soft. And then we need to just quarter it and take the core out, and then we can slice it.
All right. All right, as always, if you follow me, you know we always have a chicken bucket at the ready. So far they're getting the soft cabbage leaves, they're getting the core, and they're gonna get the carrots. That's probably all they're gonna get from today. I don't think we'll have any other scraps, but always have your chicken bucket ready to go. You can always throw it in the compost if you don't have chickens or pigs. All right, so this is our first time testing the meat slicer when making sauerkraut, and I would say it's working pretty awesome. What do you think, Dad?
Yeah, we're gonna have to stop here partway down because we got too much.
So we tried doing a half didn't work. We switched to quartering, but this looks awesome. All right, so we felt like the first run was maybe a little thick. They were like a 1/4 inch. So we're shooting for like an 1/8 inch now, which I think looks better. Dad adjusted it. I mean, this will be dependent on if you have a meat slicer. This will be dependent on, you know, the settings on your meat slicer or whatever. Ours is set at 7. And of course, if you don't have a meat slicer, you can obviously just cut this with a knife, or I assume you could use a mandolin too, right, Mom?
Sure.
Did we usually do it with a mandolin? Yeah. All right, so once you get to the end of your piece, you might have to hand cut some of them, but still saving a ton of time using the meat slicer. We also started a bowl of end pieces, so basically we'll use those to keep our kraut down once we get to that point. All right, so Dad tared this bowl on the scale. I can't lie, when I do this, I don't weigh anything, but Dad's gonna give you the very scientific way to do it, and if you just wanna do it until you have a nice salty mixture, I can't guarantee you won't die, but I didn't die when I did it that way. So, Dad, it has his bowl tared. He's filling it with cabbage, and when we get it to the top, then we'll figure out how much salt we need. All right, so Dad measured out 3,000 grams of cabbage, and there are some carrots mixed in here. So he's doing 2 to 3% for the salt mixture. You're using kosher salt, right?
Kosher salt.
Okay, we also have pink Himalayan salt. Like I said before, you just want something that doesn't have iodine in it. So tell us what you're doing now, Dad.
Okay, so just dump it in, and then we just need to work it.
So we're gonna massage it, and we're gonna basically be getting all the juices to come out of the kraut. So Dad wants to do it by hand. You can use your tamper, you can massage it by hand. You're basically just trying to get the juices to come out, right?
Right.
Right. So that's what we're going to be working on now. Like I said, you don't have to be as specific as Dad is. Dad is very scientific, which is fine. If that's how you want to do it, that's great. Or you can just sprinkle salt on until you start to get the moisture to come out, and it will work that way also. All right, so we're at the point where we're starting to get several vessels that are full with sauerkraut that's starting to, well, it's not sauerkraut, cabbage that is starting to get really moist. I said it. And, you know, the liquid's starting to come out. So Dad has these bougie containers here. So they look like this. He can make kimchi and all kinds of fun things in them. Anyway, so Mom's putting in like a layer at a time, maybe like 2 or 3 inches, and then tamping it down, adding another layer, tamping it down. If you don't have a tamper, I mean, a potato masher would work, or really anything that, really anything that you could just, you know, bat it down. So that's what we're working on doing, is starting to fill their final destination container. All right, so I said in the beginning that Google said that 5 pounds of cabbage makes 1 gallon of kraut, and that's a dirty rotten lie, because this is, how many heads do you think this is? Is this everything we just did except this bucket?
It's at least 4 or 5 heads.
So probably 4 or 5 heads of cabbage yielded this almost 3 gallons. We leave a little bit of space for its lid, and Dad will show you that in a minute. 18 pounds of kraut we're gonna get in this. Crazy.
Minus the container.
Well, minus the container.
Which
So
might be a pound.
still, it might be 17 pounds. Crazy. Okay, so Dad has this fancy container. He's gonna tell you about it.
Yeah, so this goes on, it seals. It only goes in one direction. It has a little vent so that if you have a lot of pressure, you can let it out. But when you're putting it down, you gotta have it open. So you just...
So cool. And you want to fill this type of container about 75% full, and I'll link this in the description so you can check these out.
And then the center, I think the center will pop out, and you can pull.
Oh, so you can work from it.
Right, you don't have to take the whole thing out.
So basically what we're going to do is let this sit for, what are you thinking, 6 weeks?
Yeah.
So are you going to burp it?
Well, I'm going to check, keep an eye on it.
Like every day? Every other day?
Every couple of days.
Every couple days. So if it needs, how are you going to know if it needs burped?
Well, it'll be, it's going to rise up. It's going to have a lot of
pressure happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, in 6 weeks, this should be a great container of kraut. And like you said, that centerpiece pops out. And then are you going to fridge this, or are you just going to let it sit and get funky?
I'm going to probably put it in the fridge.
Yeah, it can get super funky really fast. So I typically do 6 weeks also. But if you're just new to fermentation, this is a really cool container. They also have this 1 gallon one here, and Dad said there's like 8 sizes. So this is really neat if this is, you know, equipment you don't have. Okay, so Dad was saying that when he gets home, if he's short on brine, then he'll add some. So talk about 2 to 3% and all of that.
Right. So, you want to make sure that your brine ends up at the top of your container, over top of all of your stuffs, because that might draw mold. So you want to create your brine with 2 to 3% again. You need 2% to kill the bad bacteria, and you can't go over 3%.
What if you go over 3%?
And your lactic acid bacteria, they're going to die too.
All right, so I'm going to do a test run in a 5-gallon bucket. I know people used to do it in Crocs all the time. Going to be the same concept. So Mom's just adding a little bit of extra brine just so it's covered. I'm going to cover this with a plate and a weight. And it's going to be slightly experimental. I've always done it in the 1/2-gallon jars with the fermentation lids. So we're going to give this a go. I'll keep you posted. All right, so we put the cabbage leaves on top, which you saw there. We put a plate over it, just keep them weighed down. And then we had this weight, which we put in a Ziploc just for, you know, sanitary purposes. We're going to just sit this lid on there. You can put it on. Just going to sit this lid on there for the sake of keeping children out, but not going to seal it down the whole way. It's just kind of a cover. And we're just going to go sit this probably in the basement. And I'll check on it, like Dad said, like once a week or every few days or whatever, just to make sure we're not getting any mold. And Dad, if we need to add any brine, we can just add brine as necessary. Right. Yeah. All right, so as usual, when we have big food processing days, the chickens are getting an enormous dumping of scraps. They're enjoying pumpkins, as you can tell, because we have big tubs of those. And they're gonna love all these cabbage scraps. There's some carrot scraps in there. You know, droppings from the kids. They know that Dad has that big old bucket. So we have a trough out there. This is obviously going to overflow their trough, but they are going to be super excited. So don't waste those scraps. At minimum, put them in your compost. So we have finally got all of the cabbage cut, and they're all in their vessels. We've done 2 massages. We're going to let these sit for maybe 20 or 30 minutes and just see if we can get a little more moisture to come out of them. So when we get back, we will put these in jars, and I'll show you what my fermentation kit looks like, which is from Year of Plenty. All right, so basically what we're looking for is we want this to be wet. It wants to be glistening. That's really what you're going for, and then you're ready to pack it into jars. So Mom filled this one up. She tamped it down with the wooden tamper. You need your brine to be above your leaf that's keeping everything down. So we saved that bowl of leaves, which I showed you earlier, and that is going to keep our stuff down. So once you have your brine and you have your leaf down there, then we're going to put the glass weight. All right, so the Year of Plenty lids look like this. Basically, you have the plastic lid. There's a gasket up in here. This shoves down into the hole. You want to put some water in here. There's a cap in there. And basically what this is going to do is just keep the oxygen out. You know, that's what you need in order to do this fermentation. And then you just put that cap on it, and then we're gonna screw that onto here. And then when you're done, my lid's not quite on the whole way. So when you're done, this is essentially what it looks like. And we're just gonna keep this in the kitchen. We're gonna keep an eye on it. I'm probably gonna have 15 or so of these to keep an eye on. We'll have a few with the push buttons, which I'll show you those in a second. And then we'll have our big crock which is a 5-gallon bucket, and it just has the weight and all of that in it. So that's more of our old school one that we're gonna. All right, so these are the ones that are called is it called the Easy Weight? What's this kit called?
Fermenter.
The Easy Fermenter. So these have the push button. These are new to me, but Dad used these last year, so he's gonna explain to you how this one works.
So it's got a lid with a gasket and a one-way valve on it. And when you put your weight in your cabbage leaf in, and tighten it down, and then we just pump out the rest of the air. It's kind of a reverse pump. You see how it's...
You saw it kind of move there quick, yeah. How do you know when it's done?
Well, some people will pull it till it comes out, but usually it's just a couple of pumps. And
okay.
That's enough. Oh, liquid's coming out.
So we definitely got it all.
Yeah. Yeah, so. And that's all you have to do is just, you know, more might come out as carbon dioxide comes out, but.
And if you had to pull it off because you noticed mold or something, just do that process again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep the pump handy.
Right. So unlike these over here, where if I start to notice like the white yeast, which is not a problem, but I could just skim off, I can just take those off, make sure these have their water in them, and then just top them off with brine. This one over here, you'd have to make sure you pull the oxygen out. So just two different ways to ferment. All right, so if you happen to be a little short on brine, you can just make the 2 to 3% salt mixture. You can just boil your water on the stove and then put it in an ice bath. You want to get it down to like 100-ish. Put your salt in while it's still super hot. And then we're going to use this to top off these few jars that we were short on brine. We also are actually going to do 10 gallons old school way because I'm out of wide mouth half gallons. So we are going to do the plate and weight method in this 5-gallon bucket. All right, friends, so we got all of our 35 heads of cabbage done. I have a quart of salt brine. This is the 2 to 3% mixture. I'm just going to put this in the fridge. I labeled what it is because I'm notorious for not labeling things, so it's labeled and no one can yell at me about it. I have 2 5-gallon buckets, one right here, that have their plate and weight, and I'm going to babysit those. They're going to be in the kitchen, so it'll be easy for me to keep track of them. And then we have 15 half-gallon jars of kraut here. So what's that? 7.5 gallons and 10 gallons. So I have 17.5 gallons of kraut. Mom and Dad got 4 gallons. So our 35 heads of cabbage yielded 21.5 gallons. I think that's good math. I'm gonna test out 2 of these little sucky lids, and I'm gonna use my ones that I've used in the past. This is how Zad and I did it last year, and it worked just fine. And it's gonna be so nice that it's here in the kitchen because I can babysit it. Just note that if you get white mold called com yeast or cam yeast, that's fine. Just get that out of there, scoop it off with a spoon or whatever, make sure it's super clean. If you need a little bit of your brine, top it off from your jar in the fridge. Make sure everything is underneath the water so you don't get any mold. If anything's black, green, blue, anything other than white, you probably just need to dump it to the chickens or the pigs or your compost or whatever. So that is how you make sauerkraut. I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, as always, reach out to me and have a great day.